May 5th Housing Authority meeting to order, and we will begin with a Pledge of Allegiance, for which we will all stand. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The always eloquent Mr. Cira will give us the prayer, please.
Oh, Lord, Father God, we just lift up this meeting to you. Lord, we just thank you for everything you've done for this county and with this county. We look forward to moving forward in every initiative we have. Lord, thank you for the knowledge in this room, and we look forward to serving you in the future. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much. And with that, might we have an approval of the minutes by somebody? Judy?
I make a motion that we accept the minutes of March 10th, 2025.
I second.
I have a motion and a second, and all in favor? Aye, and approved on the minutes. The next business is any public comment. Do we have anything?
Has anybody signed up on the form? Do you mind checking? Thanks, Terry.
Okay. Absent that, closing the public session, public comment session, and we will now have the executive director's report, please. Sir.
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank you all for allowing this meeting to be moved up 1 week from its typical time so that I could attend my son's graduation. I appreciate that. Thank you for accommodating that. I'll just draw your attention to your packets. We do our regular monthly reports there. It has the current status regarding vacancies, maintenance orders, housing choice vouchers, and our wait list. So that's there for you to review. I will say, and I'll note this with some other notes I have in regards to property management further down, that that report is as of, might be as of the end of March, and so in April, you're going to see, when you look at the April minutes or the April reports, you're going to see we've had a lot of transition, a lot of people moving out, some people moving in, but a lot of people moving out, a lot of people passing away, unfortunately, things like that, but that's in the April meeting there.
Is that the principal reason why they're moving out, or is there any other?
There's some transfers. There's the folks that are transferring, asking for reasonable accommodation to transfer. That would make it easier. So, like, for example, if there's a place that's got a walk-in shower, they're asking for easy accommodation. Or if they want to move closer to a family member in another building that can provide some assistance to them, they've done reasonable accommodation. And folks, we do have a process for reasonable accommodation, and then typically, if we're able to accommodate it, and they have got some person that is of some sort of distinguishment, like a doctor or something like that, and they suggest that it's needed, we tend to approve it because, we want to make sure we're doing our best to follow fair housing rules and our own codes and stuff like that.
Right. What is our vacancy count in Foxtown now? Do you know?
Foxtown, let's see where we are with that. At Foxtown, as of the last, we were at 93% occupied, so 7% vacant.
And about that up in Terrapin also?
At Terrapin, it was 96, so it's a little bit higher, 4% vacant.
Yeah.
So we're moving some folks in. We do have a lot of transition turnover, and we do have a lot, like more than we would prefer, quite frankly. All of our staff, we talk about it every week, but we're moving some folks in, and Brian's turning the apartments over pretty well, and Lisa and Kenya are getting them together to move in. So
I would imagine because of the transition time and redoing them that we would usually carry a 5%.
yeah, I mean, I'd like to have it closer to 3, but yeah, right now it's probably better than it was. Yeah, and it's getting to be in pretty. Although as I say that, I hate we're dealing with a person that's brand new moved in, but we're getting them in better shape when people move in is the goal too. So,
is the wait list growing or shrinking?
The wait list is about, let's see, like the wait list in March for example, Terrapin Grove was 273, and then in February it was 275, so it went down. It's hovering, they're hovering right around 275 at Terrapin. Riverside, it's actually gone down a little bit because we've moved some folks in over there. And then at Graceville Terrace, it's hovering around 320. So they're actually going up and down a little bit. They're not going sky high or flying off right now. One of the things we do when people call and want is, at least I think it's newsly started, is we also give folks the phone numbers to other affordable housing in the community that's not ours. Because sometimes folks can get in there a little faster than get into our places, so we'll do that.
So that much of a waiting list would be typically 18 months?
At least.
Yeah.
It's a long time and can be frustrating for
Right.
folks, yeah.
How often do you purge the list to make sure that those who are on the list still want the,
I think it depends on the list we're talking about, but if I'm remembering correctly, we do it, I think we're supposed to do it every year. We're about a year and a half into the current list, I think, is about where we are, if I'm remembering correctly.
Could we get a grant to pick up something of the sort of Centerville Commons?
I mean, we could look into purchasing Centerville Commons. The issue with Centerville Commons is it doesn't matter who owns it, it's still going to be affordable. It's still available to our people. So if we want to take over and have that and run it, we could potentially do something like that, but it doesn't increase the amount of affordable housing available in Queen Anne's County because it's currently affordable. We just don't run
What
it.
is affordable defined as?
I mean, it typically is that you, like that, in those cases where you have to be a certain income. If you go over a certain income, you're not allowed to move into those places. And then they give you your rent according to your income. So lower people pay less rent if you have a lower income.
Right.
So,
But typically, what would you imagine their median rent might be at something like Commons?
I would say it's similar to ours, maybe a little, yeah, or a little bit more.
That surprises me.
I just heard a story last week about someone who has a voucher and getting quite a good-sized discount, and she's renting out a room in her place. Now, it's not in our area, but does that happen a lot where someone with a voucher?
I have to look back. I don't know if that's legal, quite frankly. I think they have to,
no.
yeah, you can't rent out a room.
You
yeah.
can't sublet.
No.
That seems like it's a bad thing to do. But
Well, the lease is based
Oh, look
on,
here.
Hey, Mike.
Most welcome. Most welcome, dear member.
the lease is based on that person's income and the people living with her on the lease. And then you go outside and you bring in
Yeah.
somebody else. I
Yeah.
don't think that's right.
Typically, you're right. We wouldn't, like, you don't typically rent out rooms, things like that for housing choice vouchers. It has to be, now you could have different people in the family, and you can also have caregivers that aren't part of the family as part of it in living there, but they have to be identified as caregivers, et cetera. But, I'm trying to think, and I definitely know sure that landlords cannot like rent out their own place,
Right.
and while they're living there as part of it for Section 8 housing choice vouchers. Let's see, what else did I have for so I told you that, development and other updates. Lisa Gray shared some following information. Let's see. Well, before I get to Lisa, we've successfully filled one of our scattered site units in Church Hill, which we're very happy about. We need to decide how to move forward on our scattered site property in Ken Island after it failed an inspection, and we were able to relocate the tenant so they could live in a unit that would inspect, but we got to decide because it's going to be expensive to rehab that, and we've got to make decisions. So stay tuned as we talk more about that as Brian gets more quotes in what it's going to take to bring that unit up to inspection level. Another thing, it's an important thing that we've been dealing with, and Lisa's been dealing a lot with this, is that they've restarted their annual apartment inspections. I'll talk a little bit more of that here in a few minutes, but we're really working and they do that to prevent larger maintenance issues, and we're trying to encourage better tenant upkeep. So we've done a couple, and we will say that in Terrapin Grove, we were very impressed with most of the units that we've seen so far. We still have more to go. We've issued a few lease violations, but as we issue those lease violations on various things, not just related to the inspections, but other behavior in the place, that we're still, and Lisa and I have been working on this a lot, we're really trying to focus on safety and quality of life, as opposed to being extremely nitpicky with certain things. We want things to be safe, we want things to be clean, but we don't want to always have to go after minor rule enforcements, things that, so we're really working, and it's an ongoing thing, but a friendly, balanced, fair approach for folks, because we don't want to make it look like we're constantly nagging people. We want folks to live and be comfortable where they are, but if there's a safety issue or something like that, or a quality of life, we will definitely do that. But one, we don't have the staff or the time to go after every small little rules infraction, but we will encourage and make sure that happens. But we really want to make sure that mostly people are safe and doing what they need to do there. So that's kind of, we're constantly working on this, navigating the best way to help. The other piece that we're navigating is the best way to support our tenants that are aging. We aren't assisted living. We don't provide assisted living services. We provide apartments to folks, as you all know, that are for folks. Many of our apartments are folks over a certain age, but we don't provide assisted living services. So, and then oftentimes tenants will notice things about that, and we're working to balance like the residents' needs and what our requirement is, and still being able to provide services that help them as needed. And also, while we're doing that, maintaining confidentiality and also identifying the impact on the communities, our residential. So we're walking all these lines about, how do you enforce the rules without just making it so that folks feel like they're in a police state all the time, but they're still safe and in a comfortable spot? And then also, how do you deal with, we're not assisted living, but there's folks that are living in certain places that are having a difficult time as they're getting older, and what do we do about that? So we're talking that a lot. As I mentioned earlier, Lisa reports that vacancy rates have increased, and our staff is, and that's, you haven't seen that as much in this one, but you will see that when you see the April numbers. And staff is balancing unit turnover with regular work orders. So, we have to do all the work to turn these units over and then do work orders on top of it. Tenant records are being updated to include parking, pet, and emergency contact information. We're utilizing computer tablets now for inspections, work order management. We're doing, like I just said, we're doing preventative maintenance inspections and are now scheduled quarterly. So we've completed Graysonville Terrace and Fisher Manor, and we're currently in the process of doing Terrapin Grove.
Let me ask you, when you have a turnover, typically, how long does it take from when that tenant, typically, what is our turnover? How long do we maintain the vacancy?
Our goal is to do it in less than a month. Now, we're not doing that because sometimes when we turn them over, there's some significant rehabs. It's not just simply paint and carpet that we have to put in there. So it's taking a little bit longer now, but it's getting tighter. And but the goal is to do it in less than a month. Is to kind of like they're out. You got a month to turn around, and the following month you have somebody ready to put in there.
Would that be accelerated if we used subcontractors?
We are using subcontractors to turn it over.
Okay.
We are, yeah. So.
But that's fast.
What's that?
I said that's fast, a month, because
Yeah.
some of these apartments haven't been touched in years.
Yeah.
Or inspected to know what to anticipate.
Right, I know we've got to paint and do plumbing and fixtures and,
Well, and I'll read Brian's report here in a little bit since he can't be here, but we'll talk more about that too, because it's more than just paint and carpet.
Yeah.
There's some of these floors need to be shored up and things like that. So,
So
go ahead.
I got a question on after-hours calls.
Yes.
Is that in Terrapin, we only had one after-hour call?
That let's see, was that the weekly report? Because I know a couple months when I was on call, I had to do 2 of myself in 1 week. So that may not be. Let's see, which one are you looking at here?
Because I would think that the advanced age of Terrapin, people might call at
After all calls by
hours.
facility. Let's see, it looks like there was only one in March, you're right. Looked like we had one in Scattered Site too. I guess we didn't have that many in February or March. When we might, although I know I did a couple myself because I had some lockouts. But that might have been in April. So a lot of our night ones are lockouts where people lock themselves out. And then when it starts getting warm and some of our commissioners stop working, we'll probably start getting a lot of after hours calls then. Now, hopefully less than we got last time because a lot of that work's been done and we've caught up on it. But you know, that's when you're transitioning to heat or you're transitioning to, you know, cool, that tends to be when you get a lot of those types of calls. Out at Graceville Terrace, we're working to have get that office cleaned up and organized out there so we can have more on-site hours out at Graceville Terrace. We want that group. It's a great group of people out there, and we want to provide them a little more support. Major renovations continue at Fisher Manor. When they happen, we're relocating them into other newly installed units. So sometimes when you have a unit, we have to turn them over. HVAC inspections and filter replacements were completed at Fisher Manor by a contracted service, and efforts are underway to expand staff presence and office hours at all sites to support tenants more effectively. And one of the things that's happened is this increased tenant you were talking earlier about. We're just not getting the phone calls. People are saying they're happy with it out there. Staff's doing a lot of work to make folks out there happy. We're doing a lot of work when clients aren't happy with each other. We kind of try to help with that. But because of that increased staff support and staff, it's also creating a lot more work. So that's where we are with that. In regards to housing choice voucher and hearing office specialist training, I'm happy to report that when I went down to Florence, South Carolina, I was at a event visiting some friends up in New Jersey this weekend, and they were talking about how they were going to Florence, Italy, and I was like, well, I got to go to Florence, South Carolina for training, but it wasn't quite the same. But anyway, I'm just happy to report that I passed my housing choice voucher specialist certification so that I could learn a little bit more about the ins and outs of that. And that's been very helpful, actually. And in regards to training, Lisa Gray and Kenya Wilson completed the hearing officer specialist training, and we're waiting, hopefully they'll be taking their certification test soon and passing that. We have, and I owe a big shout out to Jeff Rank, to Nicole Heffer and Justine Franzen, who have helped in working with the county commissioners to get us a new auditor. We've got a new auditing firm. Our current auditor retired, but I think we're going to be very happy with the new Clifton Larson Allen. They've been an auditor for the county in the past. They're not currently the county's auditor, but we have brought that group in to become our auditor. They've got a whole unit just dedicated to housing authorities. And we not only do we want to have them do our audit to make them a little tighter and cleaner and that way.
Where are they?
Gosh, man, you ask tough questions. I don't.
But they're not local.
They're not local.
Right.
They're a big firm. They're a big firm. Yeah. So it might be one of those ones where they have multiple cities.
Right.
Were we under contract with the previous ones?
The previous one we were, but it was a year to year.
Okay.
So it ran out. And he's not. He indicated that he's considering retiring after this year anyway. So.
Is that a specialty? Was that the guy out of Chicago who?
I don't remember where he was. I never saw him.
I did. It was
I just saw
Barry Gaudet,
paperwork.
and he was based out. He lives in Detroit, but he traveled all around.
Yeah,
he traveled all around. They were based out of Michigan, not Detroit, but he traveled all around, and he came here during the fall, brought his dog. Kind of thing. I think this other group is a little more kind of professional, for better or worse. But so.
Okay.
But yeah, and I think we went through and we interviewed 4 different folks, and they stood out because they have a dedicated team specialized exclusively for housing authority audits. They demonstrated strong understanding of HUD, which is, it's kind of its own world on itself. They understand DHCD reporting and that type of reporting. And they also, we believe they provided realistic time on how many hours it's going to take to provide for us. So their bid wasn't exactly the lowest, but they, it was maybe even the highest, but their cost per hour balanced it out. And we felt like they had a reasonable understanding of the actual amount of hours it's going to take to provide us support. So I think the staff in the finance office here at the county is excited about them coming on. I know I am too, because I think they'll be able to provide not only auditing services, but technical assistance also for certain things we still need to work on. We talked a little bit about this unofficially, but HAQA Slippery Hill Inc. So that was a separate entity, a for-profit entity that was set up at some time ago, probably around 2022, to allow the housing authority to participate in the Slippery Hill 2 project, and be part of that and be part owners of that project and make that possible. But the investor, the way they got their investors, they did not write, the way it was put to me, they did not underwrite the housing authority's interest. So they did not need to have an independent entity for us to have an ownership process. So they proposed taking the interest from that entity and just putting it into the housing authority and not having its own separate entity. There's some steps we have to take to make that happen, which means actually bringing back the entity so that we can close it down and transition it over to the housing authority. And that's in the process we're at right now.
So that turns out to have like 100 or more. Would you say units?
Affordable units, yeah.
So and actually, if we're running 350, it's 450. So it's nice to know we've got that extra capacity.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of those are where we start looking at as we kind of get ourselves balanced out and we get the footing under us. We're working real hard to get the maintenance side, everything going. We're working real hard to get the property management side going. And I think at least all of you said, when are we going to start working to make sure we bring more affordable housing into the community, or at least support that? And that doesn't mean we have to literally build it ourselves. We might be able to support other efforts, other things, other projects. And we're actually, Kelly's here. She does a lot of affordable housing initiatives for the county under our housing office, and she'll talk about some of those. So we'll see that we're not the only game in town for affordable housing type stuff, and everybody's right. We need to have more in the county. I don't think anybody disagrees with that, but sometimes there's more stuff going on than we realize, and she'll talk about some of those things later on under new business. And I've mentioned before that we've begun implementing the Maryland State Voucher Program, where we got $75,000 to expand some of our vouchers through the state initiative to bring more vouchers. So we think that we can bring about 4 or 5 new vouchers, new housing choice vouchers through state funding here. We've started the process. We are moving along pretty tight, but kind of stuff has gotten crazy with the housing authority, so it's slowed down a little bit. Kenya is helping us get together the waiting list for that project so we can start pulling people off and start awarding some vouchers out of that program too. So that'll be nice. So unless there's other questions, that's pretty much what I have for my executor's report.
Any idea what the number of supplemented affordables in Queen Anne County is?
That's a very good question. The way I could figure that out would have to be, I can get that for you. I can get an estimate for you based on what we have as a resource list. I can look at it and see.
If you had a guess.
500? That's
You're
a
not
guess.
counting our stuff.
No, I counted our stuff, so.
Then it's only 150 outside of us.
Right. Maybe more, maybe between, maybe 750. Again, I'm guessing.
Okay.
I'm not good with, I have to go research it. So. I can look that up. And that, unless there's other questions, that's what I have for the executor's report.
Is there any indication or ruffling in the trees about some of the financial cutbacks by our central government affecting housing? Or
So that's actually, it leads right into old business. So basically the way it's been described to me and the way I've been explaining it to staff is that, and I think you shared, is that you all know that we approved a budget at the last board meeting, and the next step is for that to happen is that the county's been reviewing it, and they've built in their piece of it and their portion of it. And the commissioners have put together their draft budget, which has been kind of put out, and I think the mailers are probably going out now. It's been posted on their website. And just like you said, Steve, although they've moved some stuff around and done some different things, pretty much everything we requested for in the budget is in it, except the staff. We requested 2 additional staff, and the county is not, they made it clear that there's going to be no new staff in this year's budget. And that's tough because we're all feeling maxed out, but at the same point, what the commissioners, or at least what was passed along to us, was that they really want to focus on our current staff to make sure that our current staff get their cost of living, they get their pay for performance, and that's the case. And I thought that was a pretty admirable thing. If okay, let's worry about our own folks before we pay for the news. So the bottom line is for our budget right now, as it stands, it still has, maybe it's not funded exactly the way I presented, and we'll give you more of a clear when everything filters out on the end in July. But it's looking like, other than the staff positions, what we've requested is going to be available to us. Now, Steve, your question about everything that's going on, specifically in regards to HUD, I'm hearing through some of our associations and other news stories that their HUD is no different than a lot of what you're hearing about all the other federal agencies, that there's a plan to eliminate some HUD positions, and that there's a plan to eliminate local offices. That's just what you hear in the news. That's just what I've heard in the news and what I've heard from some of the housing associations. I don't know if it's going to happen. I will say that HUD has been extremely helpful to me as we navigate some of these issues with Slippery Hill and others, and housing choice vouchers and being funded. So they've been extremely, extremely helpful, not only in their knowledge, their follow-up, their ability to provide support, their willingness to meet at any time. They're willing to negotiate some pretty tricky things that we got ourselves into, that they're helping us get out of. And so that's where we are. But I think at the same point, you got that going on. The county's doing pretty well. So that's where we are with the
And
budget.
the 2 staffing positions were maintenance and another project
Assistant property manager.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
I think the county did a good job on the budget, and I think there'd been across the county between 20 and 30 requests for additional personnel, and if you give here, you'd wind up giving everywhere, so I think they did what they had to.
Yeah, I mean, I think we did well, and they've been very supportive and helpful, and it's very appreciative.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you want to move on to the housing choice voucher?
I do.
Okay. So an old visit, housing choice voucher amendments. So just a couple of quick notes on that. You all approved that we provide an amendment to our administrative plan at the last meeting, which was a response to projected shortfall for housing choice vouchers, and you approved that we could change our admin plan. The next step in that is to have a hearing, a public hearing, and we're following kind of the guidelines. So that's scheduled for June 4th at 11:30. It's going to happen in the big conference room at the Kramer Center. And you might recall that limits how much landlords can increase rents under the housing choice voucher program. And that's one of the attempts that, because HUD is going to help us hopefully deal with this shortfall for our housing choice vouchers, one of the things they suggested that we had to meet on their end on how to go about that. So one of the things they wanted us to meet, if they're going to help cover the deficit, was they wanted us to say landlords are coming in, at extremely high increases, and we have to find a way to try to keep that at bay to some extent.
Have you any indication that is what's coming down?
You mean what rents are, I think,
Yeah.
yes, I do think rents are going up extremely high. We had one that just recently came in that's going to kind of under the deadline, but a $600 increase. And, and that's, it gets expensive, and if it's just not Queen Anne's County where that's happening. It's happening all across the country. I think that when we were in a meeting with HUD last week, we were talking about something else, but the person from HUD mentioned that probably half the counties across the country are having this issue with increased rents, creating problems and making it hard to cover housing choice vouchers, because you have to cover the difference of what the tenant can afford and what the rent is, as long as the rent's reasonable, and there's certain things you have to do to make sure the rent's reasonable.
Well, it is across the country, and the effect of that is that our very subsidized rents are getting even more subsidized. I mean, as we get further and further out of
That's-
the normal range of,
Yep, that's exactly right. And we're part of it too, so.
more and more of a blessing.
We talked about earlier the sale of administrative housing, or we talked about earlier finalizing the sale at 205 East Water Street. So we approved the recommendation and we're working towards closing in mid-May. Once finalized, we're hoping the sale will net about $135,000 after repair costs, so which we'll have available to us. Brian, like I said, was going to be here to talk about Housing Authority improvements, but he's having a flood out at Terrapin Grove, so he's in the process of dealing with that. A couple of things he mentioned to me as he was telling me this was that he's working, some of his big things he's working on right now are unit turnovers and rehab. Terrapin Foxtown, the turnovers are easier and quicker because the units, when the units become vacant. At Fisher Manor and Riverside, turnovers are more complex due to more serious maintenance needs. Common issues at those places include rotten wood, sagging floor joists, leaking and water damage, damaged flooring, and problematic door frames. And oftentimes with these types of issues, we're having to move a tenant into a rehab place, and then while they're out, we're rehabbing the unit they were in. The playground replacement at Fisher Manor is scheduled to begin May 19th. Deck replacements at Fisher Manor, we just got drawings from REI, our engineering firm. They've been received, and we've got to review and look those over. And once that happens, they'll help us with the bidding phase on the decks out at Fisher Manor. Fencing at Fisher Manor, it seems we keep falling in different places, and we're currently awaiting quotes for fences there. And like I talked about, the Bats Neck property, which didn't pass inspection, we're getting quotes for the rehabilitation of that house just to see what to do and determine, make next steps. So we were able to move the resident out of that house into another location. So that's what he's working on. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to add. No, that's.
No month-over-month buildup of work orders, repair orders.
Let me see where we are with work orders. I mean, we're addressing what happens when they really build up is when we do the maintenance inspections.
I understand.
And that's what creates them. So there's probably going to be a bunch that are coming out of Terrapin, but there weren't as many out of this most recent Terrapin that we were expecting. I think in March we had, we were at Terrapin, we only had 12 at the end of March versus 28 the month before. We had 12 versus 11 at the month before. Scattered site, we had 11 versus 20 the month before. So we've got those working pretty good. Our units ready for occupancy are increasing, and our inspections are definitely increasing. So.
When we did an inspection recently, we wound up adding over 100 work orders to.
Yes. So it's still a lot, and I mean, because Terrapin's our biggest place, but it wasn't, so far, we're only about a third, maybe a quarter of the way through on those inspections at Terrapin.
Yeah.
But,
A lot of them were very minor.
Right. So, and then another thing that we've been working on is trying to increase our communications and contact with the community. And we have another barn shawl that has been wonderfully helping with that, and that's Brian. So I asked him, and if you don't mind, to come and talk about what he's done with our new website.
Hey, George, running those, is that on that laptop there, or can I do it?
On this laptop.
That one, gotcha.
You want to,
I'm running it.
you can actually use a mic here if you want to stay here.
That'll work, but it works for me. Absolutely. I don't tell my promise.
Oh, that's right. And that was-
Well, thank you all for coming here on this Monday. My name is Brian Barnshaw, like Mike had said. I am the Resource and Development Specialist for Queen Anne's County for the Housing Development, or Housing Authority technically, under Community Services. I was tasked with updating the overall website for the Housing Authority. The original site, if you remember from previously, I don't have any pictures of it, unfortunately, because it is long gone. I don't want to see it again if I can help it. It was hard to navigate. It was really out of date and missing information. Most everything that was on there was either years old or just was inaccurate or led to a link that didn't exist anymore, causing a lot of confusion with anyone who would go to visit it. It was very uninviting. The last time it was updated was back in 2014, I think, which, you know, from that time, it's at this point over a decade ago. The worst part about it, at least from our standpoint internally, was it was difficult to get updated when we needed to. We would reach out to the company who did it, and it would sometimes take them a week or two to get back to us to say whether or not they could get it done. And in some cases, they just told us no, which was a big problem because we were trying to update information that people needed to see. The turning point was when I started to investigate the website from a contract perspective. We only had about 2 or 3 months before our contract with that company actually ended and the site went out of service. So Mike had made the executive decision to go in and actually revamp the entire website. It would give us a lot of opportunities to kind of reinvent our image online, as well as update any information that was inaccurate, provide new pictures and new ways to reach out to individuals and provide them a way to reach out to us instead of just emailing or calling. Temporarily, we had used a page on the Queen Anne's County website. It was just in between from when we were moving from our old site to the new one. And as you can see from, it's kind of over there in the corner and up there, so it's a little far away. I apologize for that. But this is what we currently have and what is live. Any individual who Googles QACHA.org will be taken to the brand new Housing Authority website. Up at the top here, of our landing page, we have our alerts where we can provide, I'll call like breaking news type information, any sort of information that we need to make sure that is available on every page. As of right now, it's currently hosting our public hearing notice for our 5-year plan and our HCV administrative plan, which Mike had spoken about a little earlier in the meeting today. This also provides access to our tenant portal and where they can submit a work order online. This is now something where they used to be able to, tenants used to have to call in or send in an email. Now they can do it right here on our website, and it gets sent to someone here internally, and it's filed, and someone will go out to do the work order when available. Our tenant portal is where people can access their rent information, namely SACS, the program we use. They're able to visit there, check the wait list if they're waiting for housing of some kind, and many other things.
So how many people use the, submit work orders through the website?
As of right now, it's very new, a couple of weeks old at this point.
Okay.
So we still don't necessarily know how often people are using it, but from the emails that we've set up internally to get notifications about the site, we have seen some use. And as time goes on, more people will become comfortable with using the site. So we really expect to see people who have access to a computer or even their mobile device or a tablet. It's all formatted and will show up properly on anything that you can get an internet connection on.
So our population, how many, what percent of population do you think is computer savvy enough to look at the website?
Well, I can't necessarily give a percentage to that accurately, at least, but what I can tell you is I know that most people can access wherever their internet is, whether that's Google Chrome or Safari on their phone or something like that, And if they can find Amazon, they can find our website. And we've made it super easy, or at least as easy as we can, to send us a contact or send us an alert of some kind, whether that's on our contact us page, or we provide our phone number still, as well as a general email. So if they don't feel comfortable with using the website, they know where to call.
And there's also a way you can kind of get at that number is, maybe Terry, I'll put you on the spot, but you can also pay your rent online through this site. How many would you guess pay rent if you had to take a top off, pay rent through online? Would you know?
A good bit, even from the senior
Right.
places. They have it set up, they'll get on there on the first. I've been taking quite a few off every day.
Okay. So it's a lot. So we have a good portion of our seniors and other tenants using it to pay online their rent. So
Do we provide any training to the various different communities and tenants to learn how to do these, for the seniors to learn how to use this?
I'm laughing because that's an excellent idea. It's something we probably should do. We go out lots of times. I go out, I try to get out there, to some of the residence councils. So that's something, and I hadn't thought about it till you mentioned it, but we could definitely use one of those events to explain it to them and go over it with them. We do have people going around that, and we do a lot of one-on-one stuff. Lisa's constantly working one-on-one with folks.
The Commission on Aging, probably about 3 years ago, had a pilot program where they would teach anyone, and it was a certain type iPad, I believe. And we even had a gentleman that was the teacher, and I think it's just fell through the cracks. Like, we were funded for, say, 8 systems to be used, to be used, and only 4 showed up, and then they just
That's
sort
before
of...
the county took over though, right?
This is before the county. Yeah. But it was through the Commission on Aging that is they're part of the county. They get a little budget. But my question is, where do they get the internet? Is that an additional monthly expense, or is it in the buildings?
I think internet, you get it through your phone. If you have a phone, typically you can get it that way. And then I think they can get, just like anything else, they can get their own Wi-Fi in their own unit.
In their own unit, okay.
It's not we don't provide them. We have internet for us to use at most of the places. Some of different parts of the building, you may or may not be able to reach
How
it.
about the community areas?
The
We don't have-
community areas, that's a good
I
question.
know at one time there were computers at Terrapin Grove in the, is it the library?
Right. Yeah, and I got to think if those are being used. I know that they can go to the senior centers and use Wi-Fi, and the ones that have senior centers next to them.
All right, good.
In addition to just our tenants using this website, like Mike said, we do want it to be an avenue for communication between ourselves and different constituents within the county. So we're going to present a lot of information, at least what the Housing Authority is going to be doing, not only for its tenants, but for the community at large. So we want to be able to provide them with information like down here, a little bit further down. You can check your availability if you're not part of the Housing Authority. If you're still looking for housing, it takes you to the SACS portal where you can type in your information and it shows you where you are. You can learn about our voucher programs. You can learn about other resources here in the county, which if I click on that, it actually links us to the most recent resource list, which isn't just housing related. It's got all types of information on here that's available to the public and easily accessible.
Now, do we check how many hits the website gets on a weekly, daily, or monthly basis?
Not right now, no. I'm unsure of the capability of that, but I can look into that, and it would definitely be interesting information to find out. I do enjoy looking at the analytics of everything and seeing what we can do to help our engagement, yeah. Moving a little bit further down, we have tile cards here, which go over each of our facilities, and we'll look at them in a minute, but just a quick overview of what each of our facilities look like from a beautiful aerial view provided by George here, as well as a place for our scattered sites. Now, we'll get these uploaded in time. There was just some privacy concerns just because they are private addresses and not a facility. So we are currently working on getting those in place. We can add other information such as announcements or whatever else. One of the nicest features here on the site is a community events calendar. We can provide updates on when we're doing things such as an authority board meeting, when tenant council meetings are held, any other events that are currently going on in the county. We can set a date and time for those, as well as provide additional information, such as, you know, if the office is closed, or when we will be holding an event, just providing links to something, or where they can provide comments, such as to this meeting.
Now, is this very similar to the county's website? I mean, is it a consistent view or, you know, graphics?
Well, we started with using the one from the Department of Tourism, right?
Yes, actually, we the basis that we had used and the company reached out to worked with the Department of Tourism. They had a fantastic website that I thought was really well put together and really gelled with what the county wanted to put forward as far as kind of their front-facing view. And Mike agreed that a lot of what was displayed on the tourism website fit what he had in mind for the website. After contacting the company, D3 is their name, I worked with one of their administration specialists, and we developed this overall look. And the best thing about it is all of this is modular. And while we can reach out to D3, we can task people internally who have the know-how to make changes to the site without needing to contact anyone else, which is one of the biggest draws we have.
All right.
Speaking about contacting and changing things, down here we have a contact form. It's the same thing that shows up on our contact us page, but this is how an exterior user will be able to reach out to somebody internally on the team. They'll provide a first name, last name, an email that we can reach them back at, and whatever their reason for contacting us is. Right now we've got a general contact where they can submit a work order, and if they're interested in becoming a landlord, which is something that had been brought up some time ago at one of our recent gatherings for the Housing Authority. As we had talked about a work order earlier, if I click on this work order request, it'll actually add a couple more fields here. It's going to request what the name of their facility is. Other properties is just our stand-in right now for our scattered sites. Yes, thank you. And they can provide an address and or unit number, as well as describing whatever their issue is. So if they can fill out a simple email, an email-like structure, they can provide us a work order. It's very, very simple.
So if I'm interested in becoming a landlord, will you see my name, address, and email as I sign up or ask for information?
Absolutely. So whoever receives it internally, and there's a general inbox that we accept things at, everything that's displayed here, written by the user, will be sent to that general inbox, and someone will be able to read it.
Okay. So we can proactively contact someone who looks at the website.
Absolutely, yes. Moving on to the About Us page here, I won't linger here too long. It just provides what the Housing Authority's mission is, some general information about the Housing Authority currently, and a little bit about our history. I was very happy to find the original Housing Authority that had started everything back in 1988, I believe it was. But it provides all of that, as well as some beautiful faces that we have with us today. And the current staff here for the Housing Authority, along with contact information. If we go to our availability and waitlist page, it provides some information on what our application process is like, how to check availability, how to apply for housing, checking your waitlist position, as well as anything else that would be listed and is pulled directly from our ACOP, the manual that we typically use to inform a lot of our decisions. We have our rental communities, which I'll just look at Fisher Manor, but we'll pop into a couple of them. We have pictures here of the general grounds, once again provided by George, the address of the general facility itself, and some nice images here that we can scroll through. There's also going to be a breakdown for each unit. It will allow for us to take individual pictures and kind of showcase what each unit, when a person signs up or applies for housing, this is what they can expect to receive, give or take a little bit of square footage. Not every unit in every facility is identical, but we try to provide the best overall look that we can. And as you can see, these are actually some refurbished units from Fisher Manor, and Brian Sr.'s done a fantastic job with a lot of these. The bathrooms on here are beautiful, and a lot of good hard work has been put into
So
it.
we saw these, this apartment, how long ago was it that we had the open house at,
We had the open house in the fall. Was it October? So, well, you may not have, I don't know if you saw this one or a different one, but yeah.
nice looking place?
I think that may not be the one that, where we, like, how we had open, where we had the food and some of the stuff. I don't think it was the same one.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think it was.
Yeah.
But that's a standard.
Yeah, that's what we're working towards in all of them. We're not there yet with all of them, but that's kind of where we're
Typical,
working.
not standards. Median.
Okay, typical, yeah, that's right.
We also have a section here for events that will specifically be held or involve that facility. So on that general calendar that we saw on the front page, that shows all facility-related events, or all housing authority-related events. If it involves just one rental community, this is where a list on the left-hand side here will be shown of things they can expect, which right now you see there's a couple of things on here for the playground construction coming up at Fisher Manor. Does anyone have any questions on what people can see or about these rental communities? I'll flip through a couple of them so we can see some pictures.
No, but I'd like to commend you on the availability, because that's clear, and for the first time, you can navigate your way through it pretty with some facility.
Thank you. The next one here is our voucher programs. As Mike said, we just started up with the state voucher program. However, we also have Housing Choice, we have Project-Based, and we have our Veteran Affairs Supportive Housing, or VASH. All of this is just provided information that we would typically supply, or Hassani would be able to supply to anyone who's interested. Just saves her a little bit of time so that she doesn't always have to send an email to somebody. She can say, hey, go onto our website, visit this page, and it's all right here for you. We have an FAQ section, which will slowly over time begin to build, I'm sure, as we begin to have more and more questions fielded to us. It can cover anything from payments to maintenance questions, application information, as well as this is where we currently hold the ACOP and the HCV administrative plan, should anyone be interested, as those should be and are currently available to the public. Aside from that, our last page is the contact page. Very simple, just looks like the bottom of the landing page, where we have our general work order information if we want to do that, or providing a contact, asking to contact us and saying what you're contacting us about. But we try to make it very simple, not as confusing or as, I'll say, hard to navigate as the first page, or the first website that we had. And from feedback that we've gotten from many of the viewers currently, at least the ones that I've spoken to or that Terry has spoken with over the phone, they seem to be really, really enjoying and appreciating the site as it is.
I've gotten the same feedback when I've met up with tenants.
Is there, the board meeting calendar was up there, right? It's in the
Yes.
calendar. How about a link to the TV?
I believe there is, yes.
Wow.
Yep, facebook.com/QACTV, as well as their YouTube link, and where you can watch it on Channel 7.
Yeah.
And we have new
Very
larger
good.
TVs, you can watch
We
it.
have, that was right. We have one larger TV and one about to come, thanks to Mr. Wilson.
Nice job.
Does anyone have any other questions or anything they'd like to comment on?
Well done,
No, it's very nice.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Yeah, it's been a lot of work, Brian. I really appreciate.
Of course.
It's not like that was the only thing he was working on while I did that either, so it's very good.
Thank you. Yeah. Or shut down that one.
So the only last thing in old business, and Todd walked in, so it was kind of interesting. It's you started us on this, is the next amp. So we've got we're still working on that. We're currently awaiting delivery of marketing materials specifically for next amp for us. We've been out and we've talked about this to many of our developments, and we've got some spots. So certain tenants that would like to sign up with next amp and get a discount, they'll have to pay 2 bills, but they'll get a discount. And with everyone the housing authority signs up, we also get $100 on that. So that next amp is really moving forward and getting ready to take off. So, and I think there's some tenants that the minority of tenants are saying, I don't want 2 bills, even though it's you add them up, it's going to be less. But for the most part, people get that it's 2 bills, but ultimately I'm paying less money. So is it okay to go into new business?
Yep, on we
Right.
go.
Thanks, sir. So one of the things that Queen Anne's County Housing Authority is required to do through HUD is that we are required to prepare and submit a 5-year plan. And the plan is supposed to outline our goals, our mission, our strategies for meeting the housing needs of low and very low and extremely low income families within Queen Anne's County. HUD uses these plans to ensure that hold us accountable, encourage long-term planning, and align our goals. So in Queen Anne's County, ours is due. And so it's the 2025-2029 5-year plan. And it's basically meant to shape our direction. And because basically we had a year to pull this thing together and working on it even less than that, much of our content from this plan was developed through a combination of HUD-required information and feedback gathered during our board and staff retreat. So there's a copy of the plan in your packet. I've created 2 ways. One is the way we have to submit it to HUD, which is hard to read. So I gave you another one that's more easy to read. It's also part of it, just so it's easier to read. Notices have been posted, and we're preparing to hold a public hearing for community input. Following the hearing, the finalized plan will be uploaded to HUD's secure website. The current goals that we have established, which again I used, which was feedback from you all and the staff, was we're going to improve and preserve existing developments such as Fisher Manor and Graysonville Terrace, expand our housing availability through development and public-private partnerships. We've talked about all this just today, by the way, so we're working on these. Strengthen the Housing Choice Voucher Program, both tenant and project-based. We've touched on that today, too. Promote home ownership, economic mobility, and self-sufficiency. We might actually have a presentation that touches on that later on today. And there's a progress report, a review of our achievements from 2025 to 2025 period, including, which we can talk about, new voucher awards, land acquisitions, and our strong county partnership, our reduced vacancy rates, and our expanded training and policy updates and resident support. So again, like I said, in your packet, you have 2 copies of the plan. Looking ahead for our next 5-year plan is my goal is to expand this process further by getting more community input, by getting deeper resident engagement, and more structured feedback from staff and voucher recipients especially. That way we'll be able to kind of get a wider view and do more. It was just, I had to kind of pull together things relatively quickly for the 1-year plan. So that is kind of what we'll be doing. It's going to be, quite frankly, it's going to be, because I didn't know it had to do a public hearing. So it's going to be a little bit late, but I've talked with the folks at HUD when we submit it, and they don't think it should be a problem. We've got the public hearing plan to go, and after that, we should be able to submit it up to HUD.
Nice.
And then, speaking of that, the next piece of new business is, I wanted to let you all know, and we talked about this at the beginning too, is that affordable housing, as you all have made clear, is something that we need to work on in Queens County. Everybody needs more. It's something you go out and everybody says that. And determining on how different people define affordable housing or workforce housing is kind of always an interesting and fun discussion to have. But in the meantime, in our group, we're dedicated to providing affordable housing so folks can live here that may not be able to afford rent otherwise. That's something we do big time. But we're not the only game in town. Even though we need more and we provide it, there are other strategies that are currently being implemented, that are currently ongoing. And for that, I asked Kelly Huber, who is she works in our affordable housing efforts and she's a housing program administrator with our Division of Housing, the county side of the housing office. So she was willing to come and talk about what she does and some of the efforts that we're working on towards housing affordability. So,
All right,
thanks for coming, Kelly.
we're welcome. Good evening, I guess it's evening now, everyone. Kelly Huber, as I said, as Mike said, I'm from the Department of Housing over there in Queen Anne's County. I want to start by saying thank you to you guys, because I happen to run into some people who have mentioned commissioners' names, the board members, employees, Mike, and just what a wonderful job you guys are doing. It was a couple of them over at Terrapin Grove that I know, just how efficient things are running, how when things are broken, they get fixed, and just because I've known them since way back when they weren't so happy. So it was really nice. It was kind of a breath of fresh air. So I did share that with people, just, in these days and times, so many people complain. It's nice to hear something nice from people as well. So thank you for what you guys do. So one of the things that I'm tasked with at the county is affordable housing, and some of the programs we have available right now. For first-time home buyers, we have what's called our moderately priced dwelling unit and our critical workforce home loan programs. And what they allow people who maybe can't afford a house without some assistance up to 33%, up to $50,000, interest-free, payment-free loan for the life of the loan. You do have to qualify. For people for the moderately priced dwelling unit loan program, they qualify at 80% of the income limit. So if it's one person, it's $72,900, two people, $83,400, $93,800 for a little family of three. So if they make less than that amount, they would qualify for that additional $50,000. It would allow them to get something maybe a little more than they could afford, or it would be able to get them what they want.
There's no interest, no payment due on that as long as
It's their primary residence, they currently live there, and nothing has changed on the deed.
Okay.
So,
They can't add somebody to the deed or any change, and then they have to repay it?
well, they'd have to if they wanted to add, like if a young person took out a loan, and then they got married, they would have, if they added that person, they would have to requalify and make sure that two people qualify.
Okay, well, in that example, it's probably more likely they would qualify than not, right?
They might. I mean, we haven't done a whole lot of that. I mean, it really hasn't, if they don't add them to the deed right off the
What
bat.
happens if they don't qualify?
If,
You call a note, or?
then they would have, you mean if they added the other person on and they no longer qualified income-wise? That's the only way they would be disqualified. So
So
if,
that's not likely
Then we
to
would go,
happen either.
we have a process built in where they can either go out and find private financing to cover the price of the loan, but there would still be no interest. They would just have to cover and then,
That difference.
or they could go and start a payback plan, and we have a payback, and they would have to pay some interest at that point.
but I will say in 2.5 years that
there's
I've been
no-
doing it, I haven't run into that.
There's no example there where they would be in default and we'd foreclose on them or anything?
No, I don't believe so.
Not really, unless they go, we've done, you'll talk about how many you've done, but there's probably been like one instance where we started the process, but then we were able to work it out.
And put them on a payment plan, and then they're,
Right.
so really that, the MPDU applies to anyone. anyone can qualify at 80% of income. The critical workforce is allowed to qualify at a much higher number, 100% of income. So the difference, that would be for firefighters, police, EMS, teachers, and their amount starts with 85,560 so for a single firefighter who's making less than 85,560, they would qualify for that same amount. If someone found a home and, most of the loans I have done have been for the full 50. If they can find a home less than 150, then it would maybe a little bit less than that. But this year alone, just so you know, I have done 10 moderately priced dwelling unit loans. I'm on my 3rd critical workforce. So we have put out $500,000 in MP, almost, just shy of 500 for the MPDU loans in 1 year alone, and about at 150 for the critical workforce loans.
And that lien is in the junior position of
Second.
whichever place it's in.
It's second. Mhm.
Yep.
Are these programs pretty well known in the sheriff's department and in
Fire departments.
EMS and so on?
It's interesting because critical workforce actually started much longer ago, like I want to say like in 2004, 2005. It started by a grant program. So they've been around a lot longer.
But that doesn't tell me too much about whether the new hires over in the deputy department know that this kind of program is available.
Well, I did, so one of my,
Because we have the ability to advertise.
we do.
We're very connected over there.
We do, and it's funny because I feel like things have just blossomed. I mean, and we've gotten so much publicity. I do have, one of my loans this year was for one of our police officers here for the county. I have a police officer, I have an EMS, and then I have 2 teachers. One that already is in process, the other one's getting ready to get approved.
Thank you.
So, altogether, in the years that we've been doing this, it's almost 8 million in loans that are out.
Do you
Some of
have-
them have been paid back.
Wow. Do you have a sense of how Queen Anne's County with this program compares to other counties?
Oh, yeah.
There are very few programs that offer what we offer. You will see there's a few critical workforce that have 25,000, maybe they'll give. Most of them are closing costs, 3,000, 5,000. And I looked not only in the state, I looked everywhere. So it is a very generous program, and that is how we utilize, you guys hear when we talk about at the planning and zoning meetings about the fee in lieu money.
Right.
So that is what the money goes towards, helping our people purchase homes
Yeah.
And the money comes from, the source of the money is?
from the developers. So, and I'll get to that. So we also, along with the home ownership and the loan programs, we have a rental program, which allows discounts on their rent. So it's 80% of whatever fair market rent is. So we have, since I started, we went from having just 14 units over at the Promenade. We now have 26. So
But these are
affordable
properties
rentals.
that the county owns, and
They're just an agreement we have
okay,
with them.
And then, does the county pay the other 20%, or is?
No, it's just an
Negotiated
agreement
with
that
you.
was negotiated.
But the county does not own these properties. It's an agreement. Yeah, they're owned privately, but because they agreed if they were going to build, that they had to provide this many affordable units as part of their
It's only a
facility.
percentage of the units that are in a.
10%. So, and the Promenade is one of the properties, and the other is the New Bay Manor. We are up to 26 now, and it remains full constantly. And so, I mean, rent, just to give you an example, rent for a one-bedroom would be $1,283. So for a working person, it's not horrible.
Yeah,
Compared to what if you pull them up, it's between 19 and 2,000 for one bedroom.
Provision of certain number of units in a project, a condition of that?
Yes.
Original approval?
So one of the things we are also doing in my job is trying to work with planning and zoning and making sure we capture anytime there is a development, we get our moderately priced dwelling unit provisions and policies in place. I don't know that it had happened quite as well as we wanted it to, but I've been working very close with Amy and planning and zoning over there and making sure that if there's a neighborhood going up that has more than 20 units, that they can either pay us the fee in lieu of providing a unit, they can provide us a unit, or they can donate land. So right now, there's a couple. You guys have probably heard. There's the Bay Bridge Marina, which is one of the new properties, 28 townhomes. They did opt for fee in lieu. Those properties are 2-point-something million, so they opted for fee in lieu. So we'll be getting another almost $900,000 that we can put towards loans and have these people choose a place to live where they want to live versus in a unit that's specified as affordable. There's also the Lowry Barnstable in Chester across from Safeway, 87 townhomes there. These are all in the works.
Is that approved?
These are just in the works.
What's that?
They're just in the works. They're not, no.
Yeah. You mean if it goes through?
Right, so we would get 9 units.
Right.
Ewing Farm, which is in Graysonville, the 290 units there.
Yeah.
So Paquin Designs at the Emergency Center in Graysonville, Queenstown, there's a couple, 40, I think it's 42 townhomes. And these are all, again, none of them are done. They're all in the works. Chesapeake Square, which is in Chester by the bank and the McDonald's, those are going to be rentals there. And I have been in conversation with him, and I believe those are coming to fruition, and they will have 4 additional MPDU rentals there. MPDU rentals are, I believe they're for more the work, like our working, those middle, where they don't qualify for a voucher, they can't get into the other units, but they can get into something like this.
About the Commons property in front of Safeway.
The little,
It's approved. It's called the Commons. It's a piece of land in between Safeway and the firehouse.
Matt, do you know anything about, sometimes,
Just give you something to check on.
we'll check
Yeah.
it.
yeah.
Sometimes if they're already affordable, which I don't know if that one is, then we don't get MPDU because they're already providing 100%.
And how many units would it be? If it's less than 20?
No. This
It's
is
big?
fairly large, but it may be in as a assisted living or something
Okay.
like that would skip.
That is, and that's with the grocery outlet there. There was going to build some different, yes. And it is assisted living or for seniors,
I think so.
so it would not apply to,
Okay.
yeah, that would
So you
be.
say there's a lot of competition for these types of units inside our county. We're not the only game in town. That's what we said earlier, yes?
Well, it's 2 separate questions. We're not the only game in town that provides affordable rentals. There's, there's different organizations that have rentals, like Steve asks. If there's some here in Centerville that are affordable and price restricted for folks with lower incomes specifically that are not owned by the housing authority. There's many of them. So there's that. We're not the only game in that town that way. But as we work to try to increase affordable housing through partnerships, through our own units, et cetera, there's other strategies going on for other affordable strategies that are being brought online. And Kelly is seeing working on quite a few of those strategies. So that's why she's here to explain what those are.
So we ahead of the game in terms of getting after these units?
Ahead of the game as compared to other
Yeah.
We're doing a really good job. I mean, I will say, what we have in place is very unique. When Jake Day came, he was very impressed with what we had available here. Everywhere we need affordable housing.
Yeah.
We need it here. We're somewhat restricted too. We don't have tons, we can't build tons of apartment buildings. We can't, our sewer system, our water system, all that kind of stuff somewhat limits us. but, we're doing whatever we can, and trying to make sure that we are trying to develop some more affordable units for people in one way, shape, or form.
Okay, so one question. Are we in front of the people who need these homes right now? I mean, are we in their face about, hey, we can do this for you, we can do that for you?
Absolutely. I mean, I typically have a wait list as well.
Okay.
Now, it's been nice because I went from having 14 to 26, all within a short period of time. So I was able to kind of whittle down my list. But we have people that move out. I had 2 people that just bought a house, so we had 2 more openings, so we put people in. So I work with them all the time. I work with the managers of the apartment. If one opens up, she gives me a heads up, or he gives me a heads up, and we have the next person waiting.
So we have a good success rate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I actually just put 2 new people in 2 units today. So, yeah, so it's a good thing.
Really good thing.
One thing I also want to add is, so in my department, we also, it's me, but we also have Cindy, who does the homelessness and eviction prevention. And then we have Denise, who does, she kind of preserves the existing housing that we have. And so people can remain in their houses. So she'll fix roofs. She will do wells, water issues.
Plumbing.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. So people can stay in their homes for longer. So, but one of the things that has happened, which I know Mike mentioned, trying to get these people to be accountable. Cindy, and this happened right before I started, had someone who was homeless. Was in her homeless, she paid for rent for them, she found them a place, paid rent for a while, and turned them around, and they ended up buying a house. So it can be done with the voucher people, how cool would that be? To work towards that. So,
Because I just talked to someone at the shelter, and they said they're looking for, I guess they have 2 residents who were homeless yet, and they're looking for someone to house men only. And it's something of that nature. We don't get into that, do we?
well, I will say that one of those people that was in the shelter is in one of my programs right now.
All right.
So, recent thing, so I'm not sure if there's 2 or only 1 left in the shelter.
Mentioned this past week, she said that she got 2 people who, they closed during the summer. They've got 2 men who are looking, but I'm just curious, that's all.
Yeah, I think we got one of them.
You do?
I think so.
That's 50%.
I think so.
That's good.
So we help all types. I mean, but my program is really designed for the working class and that, because it's not, there aren't vouchers, it's still $1,200 a month. But in the big scheme of things in the world out there, it's pretty affordable rent. So
This is exciting. This is good stuff.
I want your phone number.
I got my cards. I also brought you guys, so I brought, just on the division of housing, and it has the 3 different programs, and then I brought one on mine. So you guys you can take one and pass it on.
Yeah, can I have one of those?
Sure.
Absolutely, here. 1, 2, 3.
Thanks, Cal.
All right, any more questions? I might have answers.
You've done brilliantly. Thank you.
Thanks for all you do.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Really are.
Kelly?
All right, you're welcome.
Our compliments for your supplement to our endeavors here. Well done.
And you can kind of see another piece of this as an aside is that the county housing office and the housing authority are starting to work. So we're finding efficiencies there. We're starting to see, like she even mentioned, maybe a housing choice voucher will sometime end up at, somebody with the housing choice might end up in one of our programs. And we can start to build up that way. And this is just making that happen. So that's another good sign.
Veterans too, and I think, we've had some veterans that have come through the program. I think Steve, you had one in particular that I was working with, a veteran,
Awesome. Thank you for
a
that.
while ago. Yeah, and I was working with him as well, so
Yeah,
we didn't end up housing him, but
we know of your. Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Kelly.
And then I only have
Good present.
one last thing. And then
Kelly?
Yes.
One last thing, if that's all right?
Yeah, well,
All right, so the last thing is I would be remiss, and I'm hoping, but I just want to say, I don't know if you guys realize that this is Judy Kropfelner's, her term's coming to an end as of July 1st, 2025. She's chosen not to seek reappointment, wanting to give someone, as you said, the opportunity to serve. So kind.
I'm not self-serving.
She's served a full and meaningful term during which she's helped steady our ship. She's helped with this transition. She's helped me. She's played a key role in supporting the Housing Authority's transition to a formal partnership with Queen Anne's County. I know we will generally miss her passion and dedication. I know I will, not just with the Housing Authority, but also to the people we serve. Throughout your time on the board with me, I can always count on you to ask tough but fair questions. They were fair questions. You push for accountability. You push for results because you believe that our residents, clients, and citizens here deserve quality service. And that was always evident from the first day I met you. And you had the unique ability to combine compassion with practical insight, and we're stronger because of it. So
Good.
I just want to, the county commissioner's office has been notified that your vacancy, so they're working on filling it and coming up with some folks. And though I hope that either at the next meeting, July or September, we come back and maybe more formally thank you, if that'd be all right. But I'd just like to say thank you so much for your service, and I'll miss you very much. So thanks.
It's been fun. It's been fun.
Well, as the center of the board, I have to say that you could not have been a more supportive, bright, humane. I don't know, I had a lot of descriptives to this, but you've just been a terrific board member, so thank you so much for everything you've done.
Here, here.
Yeah, you've been a mainstay, ever since, you know, I came
You've
up.
been here the longest.
I'm sorry?
You've been here the longest. And you didn't hurt anybody, which is surprising.
You made a giant leap in the last while, so thank you. And you've been there for some of the darker moments too, my dear.
Yes, I have. But there is a light at the end of this tunnel.
Anyway, does that conclude our business?
I believe it does.
I'm going to, unless somebody has other remark.
Next meeting is July 14th.
I just want to say that was good comments you gave.
It was.
It's easy when they're true, you know? So.
A lot of people didn't like my questions.
I don't always like them, but I know they're fair.
2017, 2018, 2019.
What did you say the next meeting date was?
July 14th.
Not until July 14th.
Yeah, it's every other month. Supposed to be second Monday of the month. We had a difference today.
Terry, can you call Mr. Arntz the day before our next meeting?
Or 2 days before.
2 days before.
All right, do I have a motion to close this down?
I make a motion to close.
Second.
Second.
Thank you, everyone.